And we're off. We have Pawncrusher9 in black, Miss Whore USO in white. Miss Whore really likes this knight. And he moves out for fianchetto. Okay, when you have the bishop out in that position, it's called the dragon. And the dragon bishop is more valuable than a regular bishop. If it's in that dragon position there, it helps protect the knight or protect the king, and it's more valuable than usual because of its protective abilities. So Pawncrusher brings out his knight, and white takes the knight and loses the valued dragon bishop. Oh, that was a surprise. Comes out and threatens the queen, blocked by the pawn. So the black bishop in that position is very powerful. White cannot castle, and it's very beneficial for him. Okay, under attack and pins the king. So Pawncrusher threatens the rook, the white rook, and that will make him move, and he won't be able to castle on that side. His pawn structure is terrible on the other side, on the queen's side, so that will keep white from having a place to castle. Okay, that was a mistake. Pawncrusher puts his knight out where it can be taken. It's completely error, a blunder. What happens? Miss Whore got something different on his mind. He's going to attack that pawn and not take the knight. Well, that's pretty silly. Why would he do that? And so Pawncrusher takes that pawn. And now he could take the other pawn and call check, and then take the guy's castle or rook. But he's getting a lot of pressure on him with the pawn. So it comes up close, so he can take that pawn is taken, he can take it with the queen. Okay, the rooks are paired up. You're not developed until all your men are off the ground floor, the eighth level, and now they're paired up, and the queen protects the rook, and The rook protects the other rook. So now that gives him a breather where he can, Pawncrusher can take the pawn and check the king, and then take the rook. So, with that in mind, Pawncrusher takes the queen, and then he gets out of town with the king. He's got more pawns and a protected king. Being there's only a brown bishop or the whites, he can stay on light-colored squares. Uh-oh, here comes the dreaded knight. And so he really loves that knight. And here he is. He checks the king and the rook, and he can trade for the rook. What a big surprise. He did not take the rook. So that was really interesting, why he wouldn't do that. So he does it again. So what happens? Pawncrusher has to move. And he didn't take the knight, or he didn't take the rook for the second time. Big mistakes. But he threatens the bishop. Now he's back checking the king again and threatening the bishop. Move the king over so he can move the pawn up and threaten the rook, then possibly take that pawn. So he saw that and he moved the rook. So this is an interesting move, because all this not trading the rook for the knight, Pawncrusher deliberately crushes the pawn, and he would crush the bishop if it stayed there, but he traded a rook for a knight, but he got a pawn also, so he crushed that pawn. Time is running out on white. Okay, right there's a fork, so this is an error. He should do that fork, bring the pawn up and fork and that way he would get the rook. But he doesn't do that. Okay, this is the second chance. This time he does the fork. So white is running out of time. And he ran out of time, and black wins the game. Pawncrusher9 wins the game. Peace. Don't break the lock.